Shut up, compressor. Hey everyone, Matt here with Duke's Models, and welcome to part 14 of the A-6 Intruder build. Now, after a long-ass time getting here, we're finally at the point where we can start shooting primer for real, not just for spot priming and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm going to be using some black Stynylrez, and we're just going to start getting it going. Okay, so it looks like I've got pretty much most of the underside sprayed. Just trying to avoid the intakes here where they've already got paint inside them, so I don't want to get too much right around there. And the gear bays, because they're already white, they're going to need touch-ups because of all the overspray. But the rest of it is looking nice and black. So with that, I'm going to kind of let this sit overnight. I don't want to flip it over and rub on this stuff until it has its chance to set up. And we'll be back to go ahead and prime the upper surfaces next. Alright, it's time to do the top side now. Now this is an older bottle of Stynylrez, so it's doing some weird fisheye shit. Should be fine though, once we get through kind of a couple coats and sanding and all the stuff that needs to happen. Okay, so here's the Intruder pretty much covered in black Stynylrez, except for a few places like, you know, the top of the windscreen doesn't really matter all that much. Around the intakes, I don't want to risk getting that spray and chunk and whatnot back into where the white parts of the intakes are. They're masked, but still, I don't want to take that risk. So other than that, everything is looking pretty good. It's pretty smooth all over. There are a few tiny little places where there's some flurm that I need to get in there with like a 1500 or 3000 grit sponge and sort of work out some like right in there. The only thing that I think really needs attention before we can move on to paint is right up here in the center radome. There is a tiny little ghost seam that you can only see from certain angles. So I need to go ahead and take care of that, but first I need to let the Stynylrez set for a couple of hours, which functionally in my case means overnight. So I'm going to set this aside, maybe fuck around with some figures or something for a little bit, and pick it back up tomorrow. Okay, so there's a little tiny bit of cleanup that needs to be done before I can start throwing actual paint. And it starts right up here on the radome. As you can see, I've put some CA on top of where those ghost seams were. I've given it a few minutes to sort of set up so it's nice and good now, and we can go ahead and start sanding. And I'm going to wet sand it, so we're going to put a little bit of water right there. Now, this one's a bit dicey, because I hate sanding CA, but I also hate fighting seams over and over and over and over again. And I wish I had seen this before I installed the IFR. Now the other thing, this is something that's not unique to Stynylres, but it's something I like to do with Stynylres, and you can kind of see it going on over here on the starboard wing. Basically, it goes down okay. Mostly smooth, but it could be smoother. And so, just a little bit of this is actually, I think this is, it's also faded out, I can't really tell anymore. It's like 2000 grit or 1500 or something like that. Basically just giving this a very, very gentle pass over the surfaces. Helps remove any flurm that happened to get trapped in there, and just turns it butter smooth. Okay, so the upper radome has been repaired, and I also noticed that I had a little tiny seam kind of running along the center spine, so that has also been fixed. We were ready to start putting down our first color, and that is going to be, as it was with the canopy, some dark gunship gray. I'm tending to kind of sneak up on the final paint for this because I want it to be really battered and multicolored and all that good business. So this whole strip running right back here is going to be non-skid. Same with the whole strip on the top, just on the side, and back here on the rear stabilizers. So we don't have to worry too much about that yet. And this whole forward section here is going to have some sort of like radome tan on it. I need to go and re-reference my references and see if it's like half-ass painted over or if it's just sitting there proud. It kind of varies from squadron to squadron, aircraft to aircraft. Now, part of the reason that I'm using the dark gunship gray first is it has a warm tone to it, and the ghost grays have a cool tone, and I kind of feel like the MRP maybe overdoes the cool tone just a bit. So this much warmer tone will hopefully kind of bring it back a little bit. At least that's what I'm telling myself right now. Okay, so it's coming along. There's a lot of real estate to cover on this damn thing. Okay, so we have dark gunship gray sort of marbled all over this freaking airframe. Everything is looking solid. Now it is time to move on to our next colors. Okay, it's getting a bit late, and so instead of starting on the next color for the Intruder, we're going to go ahead and get the front and rear of the LAU-10 knocked out with this white aluminum MRP metallic. This has already been primed in Stynylres and all that good shit, and got a bit of a gloss that doesn't really seem to have done much, but we're not looking for like super shiny bare metal amazingness anyway. Now, my cunning plan for these is to literally paint them Then mask off the bare metal areas, paint the rest white. Okay, that looks pretty good. Set those aside. Next up, I'm going to spray some light Arctic Gray, MRP 246, as a sort of base white for a few components, including the triple ejector rack. One fun thing about Desert Storm era photos of Intruders, if you look, the multiple ejector racks and the triple ejector racks tend to be various colors. You have some that are very obviously like light ghost gray, but then you've got some that are like some weird darker gray, which I didn't even know they came in that flavor. And you've got some that are, you know, they look like literally Vietnam holdovers. They're white. The problem with that is 3/4 of my ordnance is also white, so I want to get some visual separation between them. That's looking pretty good. Let's get our friends the rock eyes and get them treated while we're at it. At least for this initial run. Okay, we got a rock eye. That's where to put the rock eye. Alright, so for my next color, I'm not going to... Alright, so for the next color, I'm going to shift away from the overall airframe and do the... Okay, so for the next color, I'm going to shift away from the airframe for just a minute and go ahead and deal with the slime lights. We've got them on the wingtips and on the fuselage. And for this, I've mixed up a little slurry concoction here of MRP Lemon Gray, MRP Zinc Chromate Primer, and MRP Clear Doped Linen, just to kind of lighten it and desaturate it a little bit, because the slime lights on the Desert Storm Intruders, not the most vibrant things in the world. Trying to keep in mind that these will also be subject to weathering that'll go down in a little bit and all that kind of good stuff. So Okay, so we've got the slime light sprayed. You can see the port wing here. We've got port fuselage, starboard wing. Now let's get back to the airframe. Okay, so my dumbass just dropped the nozzle for my PS267 on the floor, and no idea where it is, and even if I do know where it is, it's probably dinged up and needs to be replaced. So we are switching over to the 771 for a while. And I'm going to go ahead and do some MRP 38, which is light ghost gray, and is, yes, I know the final color for the underside, but I want to start at least laying some down and see how it's looking. Another reason for this is at least the leading edges of the slats up front. I believe the stabilizers and also the radome have a sort of yellow tone to them. The radome is radome tan, but I believe that the slats and stabilizers have a slightly different color going on. It's more yellow than radome tan tends to be. And I need to figure out my process for that, and part of that is getting some light gray down. Now, one of the benefits of spraying super highly thinned light ghost gray, so we can come in here and we can add a few little details, and they get very, very subtle very fast. And then when you come over it, sort of a broader spray, they sort of persist because you're bringing up the gray opacity of the entire surface, right? And so if this is getting up to like 40%, these ones that have already had some work done on them are getting up to like 60%, 70%. This is where, even though I'm doing broad spraying, doing it with the 771 versus something like the 290 with a big old 0.5 millimeter needle, this still has a somewhat random haphazard distribution pattern because I'm spraying it with 0.18. And using Mr. Leveling Thinner ensures that even though it's currently humid as fuck and it's about 87 degrees outside, we're still getting a nice smooth layer of paint out of this. Alright, so the lower light ghost gray is at least kind of sprayed for now. Next we'll be moving on to the upper surfaces to deal with the dark ghost gray, and then we'll be kind of doing some blending, dealing with the radome tan up front and on the wings and all that kind of shit, and we will go from there. Okay, next up it's time for some dark ghost gray, MRP 97. Now, I think MRP's dark ghost gray is a bit dark for what we want out of a kind of battered older Intruder, but for keeping the basing and build-up going, I'm going to use it anyway, at least for the marbling stuff. Alright, so the Intruder has its base camouflage down. We've got dark ghost gray up top, and on the bottom we've got our light ghost gray. Now these still have a ways to go. I still have some stuff I need to do. You know, you can see over here on the side we're still lacking some shit. The nose needs some work, etc. However, I need to go ahead and do some detail work in places. The radome, I need to do that sort of radome tan. It's kind of showing through the gray. The leading edge slats need that sort of yellow radome shit going on. I need to do a little bit of repair work on the rudder back here. There are some areas where it kind of got a little bit weird. There was some texture, I guess, from where I fucked up sanding it or something. So a couple of small things that need attention. And once those get attention, I'm going to need to come back in here and touch up some of this stuff. And I still need to make this a bit more varied, because right now it's kind of uniformly worn and dirty looking. But I think for now, I'm going to go ahead and mark this as a good stopping point for episode 14, and we'll pick back up with 15 and all kinds of fun detail shit.